Eden's journey, I truly think is just beginning. So I think this is more about her marriage than it is about Joanna. Hey, I'm upset about it too, to be honest. Did anybody else feel kind of weird when the intro started playing? What's up? Welcome to The Snipe Life, where we look at creativity through the lens of Christianity. Today, we're going to be talking about Season 3 of The Chosen, Episode 5. There's so much that went into this episode, and now that we've had this episode, we kind of have to go back. And honestly, this is one of those cases where I wish that I was wrong about our theories. This is one of those cases where I wish that I had not been right about Eden having a miscarriage. Unfortunately, I was right, and Eden's miscarriage is one of the very first scenes in this episode. So let's dig into Eden's story, and maybe we'll jump back and forth between episodes 4 and 5 and kind of discuss exactly kind of what's going on with her. This is a really, really, really heavy story. So let's get into it. Leave your comments down below about what you guys think, and let's jump into it. All right, so this first scene that we have is Eden with her mother. Now, Dasha, we saw from season 1 of The Chosen, right? We know that she was healed by Jesus, and obviously throughout this whole entire portion here, Eden is kind of hidden. It's not showing her face until we get into the actual doctor's house. Now, if you didn't realize, this doctor is actually the same doctor that we see for Jairus later on. This is just 2 weeks earlier in the storyline, right? But this is the doctor that we see in Jairus' house later on, and obviously his wife is here in his family's house, I assume. And so as we see Eden and Dasha arrive, it's really, really heavy. We see immediately that the doctor springs into action, and there's obviously a ton of blood everywhere. Big issue is happening here. And we still can't see the woman's face, and it's all kind of like you can see the intensity, the blurred out vision of kind of what's going on. And then eventually, finally, we see Eden's face here. This is a hugely traumatic experience that she's gone through, and the only people that really know about it is this doctor, Dasha, and Eden, and obviously the doctor's family. But man, this was just heartbreaking. Seeing Eden's face here and seeing how she was kind of going through this situation, man, really, really, really tough. And this kind of gives us way more understanding of why Eden was the way that she was in episode 4. And it gives us more understanding of why we were seeing the things that we were seeing when we were talking about the behind the scenes of The Chosen, when we were talking about the things that were coming up. And Joanna, hey, I'm upset about it too, to be honest. This is something that we've actually had a theory about for probably about 4 months or so, that she was going to have a miscarriage. And we had kind of looked at all the behind the scenes and looked at everything that was kind of going on and come to this conclusion, but I was really, really hoping that I was wrong. Did anybody else feel kind of weird when the intro started playing? It was really strange to me, right? Like after this mega intense moment, and then we see the intro playing. That was interesting for me. I don't think it was a bad choice necessarily, but it was it just made me feel so weird, and maybe that was the point of it, right? Maybe the point was that they wanted us to feel this kind of like unassurity or this uncomfortableness, right? Now later on we see Eden with Simon back at home, and again we get this kind of awkward scene where Eden is really focused on just like she makes him lunch, she's kind of doing her wifely duties, but she's still not having this conversation with him. Now, let's go back to episode 4 for a second in our minds. Remember the conversation that they had in episode 4, the kind of moments that they had in episode 4. We see as Simon comes home, Eden kind of bows up on him, right? And then we see as they kind of, greet each other. They're really excited to come home. But then immediately kind of disaster strikes, and Simon's not on the same page with Eden, and Eden's not on the same page with Simon. And Eden is kind of unfair in some of the responses that she has. And Simon is kind of, he's in a totally different mindset. He's just come back from war, essentially, right? He's come back from the 2x2. But now having this information, knowing that Eden was going through all this stuff, when she's asking him things like, did you notice something different? She doesn't actually care about the house right now. She just wants him to care about her and to care about her feelings and her thoughts and who she is as a person. So for her, she's really just begging him to ask, how are you doing? What's been going on? And so then she can slowly get into this conversation and get into that. But she doesn't know how to do that. And she doesn't know how to share this trauma with him and without wrecking him, right? Without hurting him. And in the process, she gets hurt. And so now she doesn't feel seen anymore. Like she said with Jesus, right? Like Jesus in season 1 said, I see you. And yet now she doesn't feel seen by her husband. And in episode 5, now she doesn't feel seen by Jesus either. Really, really rough. And so now they're just silently kind of making a lunch for Simon here. And he just puts some apples and some pitas in a little to-go baggie. And that's going to be his lunch at the broken sewage cistern. And without saying anything, he just starts to leave. And then he says what Gaius told him to say here.
Whatever it is, you are right, and I'm sorry.
Whatever it is?
Yes.
Whatever it is. Now, I've been here more times than I care to admit, to be honest with you. There's been so many times in our marriage where I get to that point of like, whatever it is, I'm sorry. Like I don't know what happened, right? I don't know what I did. I'm sure I did something, because obviously you're very upset, but I don't know what that is. Hey, did you know that we're going to Israel in 2024? We would really love to have you on this trip with us. I'm talking to some other YouTube creators, and we're going to have some amazing hosts along for the ride as well. The trip I've tried to make as cheap as possible, but I would love to have you there. We're not only going to Israel, but we're actually doing an extension to Jordan as well if you'd like to add that on, but that's an optional piece. Anyway, let me know if you have any questions in the comments down below, and feel free to email me if you want to learn more about the trip. All the links are in the description down below, so let's get back to the episode. But then we get this scene here with Eden. And remember, all of this is in the context of 2 weeks earlier, she has a miscarriage. Then we see episode 4, right? So 2 weeks ago is before Simon gets back, right? Then Simon gets back, and we see all this stuff happen where their marriage is kind of imploding a little bit. And then we see this episode where now not only is her marriage already kind of on the rocks, but now all these other people don't care about her either. Like she's just so unimportant to them. Even though she's feeding them and taking care of them and doing all these things, I'm sure she was extremely excited for Jesus to come to the house every time that he's come to the house, but still he hasn't had a conversation with her. So what's with that, you know? And as we go through this scene, we see again, her face here is kind of, it's just in a different place completely. And now that we're on the inside and we understand what's happening here, we have a better look into what this actually means for her, how she's actually feeling. And it's really heartbreaking. What were your thoughts as we looked at Eden? What were your thoughts as you saw her kind of broken here? I think this face explains it all for me. It's like she's staring Jesus in the face, the one that she knows can heal her, the one that she knows has the ability to allow her to carry a baby, to have fixed what happened earlier, right? But he hasn't had a conversation with her. And I wonder kind of what the Chosen's doing here. Like, are they saying, because Tyler kind of alluded to like the God goggles thing in the after show where he really kind of he's sticking to this point of like Jesus is human. He doesn't have these God goggles all the time where he can just like see these different things or, you know, telepathically know people's thoughts, etc. But man, yeah, I would say I just agree with a lot of what you guys are saying. Just the numbness. She looks numb. Even Eden feels left out, forgotten, and ignored. My heart broke for her. Yeah, not present, I think, is a great way to say that as well. It was horrible. Time and God heals all wounds. Yeah, that's true. But in this moment, Eden is looking for... she's not even looking for. She's found the person that can heal her, right? And yet still she's in this predicament. And man, that's got to be difficult, right? And Jesus, this look here shows like he knows that something's going on. I believe that he probably knows exactly what's going on, but he's choosing not to intervene. And Jesus will do this, right? God will do this in our lives. He'll allow us to go through these things, and to not be healed, just like we saw with little James, right? And to not be necessarily comforted in all of that, right? And so I wonder what the end product of this is going to be. And in my mind, I don't think that the end product is another little James scene, right? I think the end product is something completely different. And as we get to the end of this scene here, we see again, Eden has a moment as they leave the house. She's looking at them again. Oh, Jesus is going to go off and heal someone. Maybe she's thinking, should I ask him? Should I talk to him? This guy randomly came in and asked, and Jesus kind of, went with him and did this. Should I ask him? I don't know if she's thinking that. Yeah, I don't know. It's a timing thing, I think, for sure. It's in God's timing and in his way. But I don't think that we're going to get another scene like little James, because it just wouldn't make full sense, at least in the writing that we've seen in The Chosen so far. I don't think it would make full sense for them to do two full scenes that are exactly like that, right? Like, Eden, I've trusted you to go through this process, right? Like, I don't think necessarily they would have that type of scene again. So I think this is more about her marriage than it is about her trusting Jesus. I do think that she trusts Jesus, but I think she's just going through some jealousy and hurt. And I think that is going to pass on to Simon. I think that is the biggest thing about this portion of the season, about Eden in general, is that this is not just going to impact Eden. It's going to impact Simon. And then it's going to impact Simon's view of Christ. And can he trust Christ and all of these things? I think he's going to go through some battles with that. As we see throughout Scripture, we see as Peter kind of like floats back and forth. He doesn't know what to believe. He doesn't know what to fully go in. And while he is strong in his faith, right? There are still these moments of doubt for all the disciples, right? And so maybe it leads to that as well, or at least a moment of maybe more clarification for him. But we can see as Eden kind of struggles there as well. And then at the end of the episode, of course, we have Eden right here as they pull out for the ending shot of the episode. All the guys are playing around without a care in the world, right? And then we have the two ladies who Eden has never really been a part of, right? And then we see them with Veronica, who has just been healed by Jesus. And then we see Eden alone. And what is the point of this scene right here? What is happening to Eden? She, out of everybody, is not being seen. So she's standing on the bank. She's looking at everybody. She's looking at the boys playing in the water. They don't have a care in the world. They're just having fun, playing chicken in the water, right, in the Sea of Galilee. Then there's the ladies who are focused on them. They're just, laughing, having a great time, celebrating that Veronica has just been healed. And yet here is Eden. Nobody looking at her. Nobody seeing her, as she's been told that she's been seen. And her heart breaks because of that. Eden's journey, I truly think, is just beginning in this realm. I think she's going to struggle with this for a while. But like I said, I think all in all, this is not about Eden. I think it's going to transmit to Simon. Now, something that we've seen in the trailer of season 3, the trailer for overall season 3 shows Simon as he kind of breaks down crying with John. And we know that is in the season finale because Dallas actually talked about that in a live stream. So if we can kind of put all these different pieces together, we know that that moment happens in episode 8. At least I'm like 99% sure. And so if that is the case, then Eden is, she's going to kind of transfer some of this hurt and angst to Simon. And Simon is going to have to deal with that when they're doing things like feeding the 5,000. When they're, he's just gone out and he's done the 2x2, right? He's done all of these things. And yet his wife had to go through this alone. How much angst and how much hurt is he going to have towards Jesus, who just sent him out while his wife was having a miscarriage, and he wasn't there to help her, and he was healing all these other people, but he didn't heal his wife? How would you deal with that in your life? Man, it's a lot to hold. And this is a very heavy episode because this is just looming over you the whole time. All this amazing stuff is happening. Jairus' daughter, Veronica, the woman with the issue of blood, is being healed. All of the disciples are kind of operating in their gifts and they're helping Jesus do everything. And even Judas is negotiating, right? And yet here's Eden, basically with no lines in this episode, right? Just looking and being completely unseen and hurt. Yeah. It's a heavy one for sure. So excited to see what they do with Eden through the rest of this season. I do know that Simon and her are going to be reconciled, but I don't know if there's going to be a moment with her and Jesus. I wonder if that is actually going to happen at all. We'll see. Anyway, very interesting. Hey guys, if you like this small excerpt from our live stream, you can check out the whole 4-hour live stream over on our Patreon. Just go to patreon.com/thesnipelife. This is seriously the best way to help to support our ministry and our YouTube channel. Thank you so much, and we'll see you over there.